Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome, a warm welcome home to Torah at the Yiboneh Beit Midrash. I just want to mention that we're going to talk about Shabbos. That's how you pronounce it. Now, you can pronounce it any way you want. I really don't care. Shabbat, Shabbos, it all works. Okay? Doesn't matter where in the world you're from. We're happy that you're here. And wait till you hear this. We are going to explore some very deep ideas about Shabbos. We have a very special guest here tonight. His name is the Ollos Ephraim. He is the very same Kli Yakar. And he is going to share with us something just absolutely unbelievable. So let's start. We're in chapter 35, verse 1. So it begins like this. VaYakeil Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Moses gathered together. The word VaYakeil, it's a verb. He gathered together all of the assembly of the children of Israel. V'yomer aleihem, and he said to them, Eile hadvarim asher tziva Hashem la'asos osam. These are the things which Hashem commanded to do them, la'asototam, to do them. And then the next two verses, if I'm not mistaken, two verses, talk about Shabbos. And then it skips to a whole other subject, which has to do with the building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan. So keep in mind, there's a concept called whatever came first pushes off whatever comes second. That's how we know that we stop building the Beis Hamikdash. Shabbos takes precedence and does not allow us to continue building the Beis Hamikdash come Friday night, which is Saturday, right? Friday night, Saturday is a Shabbos. I had a chiddush, and I haven't seen it anywhere, but I'm thinking out loud. You know, the third commandment, right? Do not be a sheker, right? Don't testify falsely, right? Don't use Hashem's name in the wrong way. Guess what? If a Jew doesn't keep Shabbos, it's like he's testifying falsely about himself. I beg, whoever is watching this and has never experienced a Shabbos in their life, try. After we get done learning tonight, it's going to blow your mind. You're going to say, what have I been missing my whole life? I can't believe it. This is something very special. And therefore you can be true to yourself and carry the name Yehudi properly. And for those non-Jews, right, we're going to talk about Shabbos. You're going to understand the concept of Shabbos and why there is a special relationship that the Jewish people have with Shabbos. And you could, I'm going to just use this word, you could tap into it, right? It's not yours, you're not commanded, but you could tap into the concept of Shabbos. And I'll leave it at that, and let's get started. So we read the first verse, and Rashi immediately says, and the Kli Yakar brings Rashi, and he said, when did Moses gather everyone together? L'macharat Yom HaKippurim, the day after Yom Kippur. I mean, just think about the history, right? We left Egypt on the 15th of Nisan. 50 days later, we're standing at Mount Sinai. It's Shavuot, right? 7 weeks, 7 days times 7 weeks later. The following day, the 50th day, we received the Torah, Matan Torah. Let's say we didn't receive it physically, but we were given the Torah, right? We were given the commitment, the covenant. We entered into a covenant. We said, Naaseh v'nishma. We will Naaseh, we will do it. V'nishma, we will listen, we will observe, we will continue to learn and fulfill whatever it is. Okay. 40 days later, Moses comes down with the tablets and he breaks them. We don't really receive them. We never actually got our hands on these tablets. They were broken and they were put into the Aron Kodesh, in the Holy Ark. 40 days, Moses is praying for our benefit, for God to forgive us. And on the 40th day, God says, I forgive you. Come up and receive the second set of tablets. So it was the first of Elul that God said, I forgive you. Come up and received the second set of tablets. 40 days later is what day? Is this day, Yom Kippur, the very day that we're discussing right here. As Rashi mentions, if look at number 2 on the English source sheet, on the day after Yom Kippur when he came down from the mountain. Now just keep in mind, because the next part I didn't underline, but it's important to know, this word, VaYakeil, is a hifil, causative expression, causing someone to do something, to gather together. Because one does not assemble people with one's hands. It wasn't a physical act, but it was with words alone, and that's going to play a very important part in tonight's discussion, that Moses was able to convince them by words to assemble themselves through his speech. Let's now go into the Kli Yakar. He right away brings down in Parshat Yisro. We read it just a few weeks ago, chapter 18 of Exodus, verse 13. What does it say over there? It says, right, that it came about on the next day that Moses sat down to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from morning until evening. So Jethro, we're talking about Jethro, the Parshat of Jethro. This seems, according to Rashi says, when was that day? When it says the next day. First of all, let's read the Hebrew. Vayehi mamacharat. It was the next day, the following day, that Moses had to judge the people. Rashi says this was the day after Yom Kippur. What's going on here? The day after Yom Kippur in the Torah, chapter 18, is coming before the 10 Commandments were spoken, meaning on Shavuos. The Torah is not in order. Did you ever hear such a thing? The Torah is not in order? Wait till you see what I wrote here in the first comment in the English. There's a famous discussion in the Gemara and throughout history. Is the Torah in chronological order or not? Everybody actually agrees the Torah is not in chronological order. However, I need to bring a few caveats here. Number 1, how obvious can it be? Look, if you want to look. Look now in Numbers, chapter 9, verse 1. It says, remember, this is the 9th chapter of Numbers, in the 2nd year of their exodus in the land of Egypt, in the 1st month. That means the 1st month of the 2nd year is chapter 9. And go back to chapter 1, and it says it's in the 2nd year of the 2nd month. So you can already see the Torah itself is not in order. So where's the question? The question is whether, according to Rashi and the Ramban, which really goes way back, everyone agrees the Torah is not in order, or let's say not necessarily in order. But the Ramban would hold that where the text clearly states a date, we know it's not in order. If there's no date, the assumption is that it's in order. Rashi says no, we have an oral Torah that discusses when things are out of order, and we go by that. I know that I don't want to confuse you, but I think it's a very fundamental thing. We have an oral Torah, according to Rashi, that will describe when things are not in order, where the date is not there, or even the context wouldn't have been known. Ramban would hold no, only where, right, the date or context is clear. Okay. So we do have a dilemma here, because we do have, I wouldn't call it a dilemma, let's just say an interesting phenomenon going on. That in Parshat Yisro, when Moses is sitting down to judge the people, as we know, it's famous Jethro, and he sees that it's overwhelming. Moses is sitting from morning until evening. How can this be? And he makes this famous suggestion to have tiers, higher courts, lower courts, right? Make it easier for Moshe. Remember, it's his own daughter who is married to Moshe. He would like to see Moses go home and spend some time with his daughter, right? Meaning Moses' wife. Why not? How can you spend the whole day, every day like this? But it's fascinating that took place now on Yom Kippur in our parsha. The same, it's like an overlap. Try to get your head into this. What is so important about the fact that Moses sat down to judge the people and have lines of people on that day, the day after Yom Kippur? I mean, we're going to have to bring it up. If you didn't ask it then, you can ask it now. So look what the Kli Yakar says. V'hima macharat v'yeshe Moshe lishpot es ha'am. As we just saw in Parshas Jethro, chapter 18, verse 13, that it was the following day, add the words after Yom Kippur, that Moses sat down to judge the people. And Rashi explains over there, Kizaya lemacharat Yom Kippurim. Fine. Nir lefarish, this is how we're going to explain it. And this is absolutely fascinating. As I said, Shabbos and Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. It's a Shabbos of Shabboses. Okay? Shiyadua. It's well known. Shahakel zayalahudi lehem mitzvahs Mishkan v'hanadava. The day after Yom Kippur. This gathering was for what purpose? To tell them, to tell the Israelites, to tell the Jewish people, and to command them, now you have a mitzvah to build the Mishkan. Again, another machlokus. Was the Mishkan part of creation all along, or was it as a tikkun for the chet ha'egel, for the sin of the golden calf? I'm not going to go into the different opinions in depth, but it could be similar to the chet harishon, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Was that part of God's original plan? Remember, it says that God looked into the Torah and created the world. So how can it be any different? Did the Chet Egel seem to have to happen on some level? Or only as a result of it happening, we have the Torah unchanged in God's mind? Okay, we'll leave that for the philosophers to discuss. But we all know, if according to this opinion, the way we're explaining it, that the day after Yom Kippur, the Jews had, right, Yom Kippur, we received the tablets, the second set of tablets, and we had been forgiven on Yom Kippur, and God did, according to the way we're explaining it, Rashi gave the instruction for the tabernacle as a tikkun, as a fixing for the chet ha'egel. Why? I'll explain very briefly, just like in one or two sentences, that Hashem knows we are just flesh and blood, and we are supposed to relate to Him. And He wanted us to relate to Him by having this tabernacle. He wanted us to relate to Him. So He said, I see you have a problem relating to me. You want to build a golden calf. I'll do something better for you. I'll give you a place where I can dwell, and you could serve me there. You can relate to me. Even such things as idols are obviously forbidden. Yet, strangely enough, on the very place where Hashem speaks from, the top of the ark itself, you have two kruvim, cherubs. This God says, do not make any, idols. Don't make any images of anything, any likeness of, angelic forces or of birds and sea creatures, anything, any animals. And yet, that is seemingly what is on there. These babies with wings, right? Whatever it is. This is called a kosher way of serving Hashem. We don't bow down to them, we don't worship them. But Hashem is speaking from that very place. So it's as if He, lowered the bar. I don't know if that's the word, but there's a certain acquiescence. Lowered the bar is probably a good word. So, and he wanted us to worship Him in or through the different service of the temple, the tabernacle. But what was told then was to do what? To donate, right? As I mentioned right away in our Parshas VaYakeil, from verse 4 onward, right? You're basically having all of the nidavot, all of the free will offerings brought in order to construct the Mishkan. Okay. What was Moses concerned about? Moses was concerned. Could you imagine the Beis Hamikdash being built with stolen property? No. Moses wanted to make sure, he was concerned, lest somebody donate some physical material, whether it's money, gold, or any one of the 13 or 15, depends how you count them, materials for the Mishkan that didn't belong to him. Now, was any of these Jews really thieves that would have stolen something? No, not outright. But how is it that you end up with property that might not belong to you? Remember, they left Egypt with such wealth. Why would anybody in their right mind steal? I think they had an over. What are you going to do? Go to the nearest kiosk in the Midbar Sinai, in the Sinai desert, and buy a Coca-Cola and not have enough money? It's ridiculous. So I think what he's trying to say here is at the Yom Suf, when the Egyptians drowned and all their gold came up. Do you remember the chesed that Hashem did for us? That we didn't have to carry all that gold out of Egypt. We only carried a lot, but we didn't carry it all. And the rest of it came up when the Egyptians drowned. What a chesed that we didn't have to carry it for 7 days, right? It meant a lot. So when two people bend over to grab something we're talking about the sea had split, now it all went back, and the Egyptians were drowned, and up on our side of the sea came all this, I'm not sure it was just gold, let's just say riches and wealth. Two people bent over to grab something. You know the Gemara Baba Mitzvah, with two people holding on to a talus, each one claiming it's theirs. It doesn't mean he's a thief, right? It means he really believes he grabbed it first, and the other guy really believes he grabbed it first. So you have to figure out, is it all yours or are you going to divide it? Okay? So that's what's happening here. It's not even reasonable, it's not reasonable to think, it's not possible or probable that our holy, great and holy temple, we're talking about the Binyan Habayit, of the Mishkan here, should be built with stolen property. Now this is a very interesting pasuk in Koheles, that's Ecclesiastes, and I think the best way to explain it will be as follows. It's chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. Number 5 on the English. Moreover, I saw under the sun, in a place of justice there is wickedness, and in a place of righteousness there is wickedness. I said to myself, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and for every deed there. Now what I think, what's happening here? We're talking about the Sanhedrin. The major seat of justice is sitting in the same place as the temple. The temple cannot be built with Gezel. The Sanhedrin is there to resolve issues with righteousness and with justice. And it's not reasonable to assume that they also would be sitting in a place. Now, of course, people coming, the only reason people coming to be judged I shouldn't say the only reason, many of the reasons why there's a judgment taking place is because there is wickedness there. But the place itself cannot be founded upon. It cannot have the basis, the sod, the foundation has to be also not from Gezel. That's what I think Pshat is, and let's continue. And I think that's why he brought it. Afkin Hichris Moshe Techila. This is the very reason that Moses first makes this proclamation. Mi Bal Devarim. Does anybody have a complaint? Right? Is there a dispute? Yigash Alayla Mishpat. Come to me for judgment. With the ultimate goal, and this is going to be key, not just for Shabbos, not just for the Beis Hamikdash, but for the whole purpose of justice as well. In order for all of us to be at peace with each other, if there's a dispute, it must be resolved. It has to be resolved. That's in a way that the whole people would come to a place. That's the Beis Hamikdash, that's the Sanhedrin, and ultimately it's going to be Shabbos as well. Hang in there, we'll get to it. V'noda l'chol echad mashahu shalo or einu shalo al yidei shahayid dan beinehem. With the ultimate goal, right? In order to know, each person should know what belongs to him, what belongs to the other guy, and the only way that's going to happen, if there is a dispute, is through having judgment between them. Then it will be known, this whole concept, meaning following, if you see as we go on, right? The next few sentences. One of them is, and I'll just tell you what it is here, because I have my English thing, it's verse 5, chapter 35, verse 5. It says over there, take from yourselves Now, you read in English, I'm going to tell you, anybody reads English translation, you're reading the lie, right? You cannot learn just from the English. We have to go deep into the Hebrew. So I beg of you, and I'll just remind you all. Number two, I'm going to make two announcements right now. Number one, we have these original Hebrew sheets on the website, on the Yiboneh website. So down below, there's a link to go to the website, and then you have to choose which book and which parsha and know which year. Okay, that's a big job, but it's pretty easy to know. If you don't know, the tape you're watching, it tells you the date it was recorded. So within 1 or 2 days, that's when that's the parsha, and you'll easily find the name of the parsha, the year the parsha was, and you'll find the Hebrew next to it. Number two, the other announcement I want to make, Pesach is coming up, and we're running a campaign for Kimcha de Pisca to help those in need with dignity to have a nice Hag. So also, there's a link in the description box below. It'll only be active for another few, I think 2 weeks, whatever it is. So if you're ever watching this another time, you'll have to donate a different way, to a different cause. But anyway, so back to the Kli Yakar. If you read the English, you will not come to a deep understanding. What does it mean in English? Take from yourselves an offering for the Lord. Every generous-hearted person shall bring it. Right? Look in the Hebrew, it says, Kachu mi'itchem trum l'Hashem. Me'itchem, from you. Literally, it has to belong to you and not someone else. Hainu mishilachem v'lo mishal chaverchem, not belonging to someone else. It has to be the case, because if that wasn't the case, what do you need the word mi'itchem for? The word mi'itchem is unnecessary. Just say, take truma to Hashem. Period. There is no doubt, even though there's no doubt, there's no doubt that it was impossible. It's not humanly possible for one person to judge the entire people in one day. It's not physically possible. And the truth is, even for a person, they need a bathroom break, they have to take lunch break. But the truth is, even for a person, it's not necessary. Judges should not be judging from morning till evening. Now it does say, literally, look in verse 18, verse 13, right? And the people stood before Moses from the morning until evening. V'yamod ha'am al Moshe min haboker ad ha'erev. This is what Yisro saw. Hainu k'perish Rashi. We have to explain like Rashi. The truth is like this, that if somebody is a judge, this is like a fascinating concept. If someone is a judge and their kavanah, their intent, not to be bribed, not to look good, not to show off, not to advance themselves, but to come to the ultimate truth. As he says, Shekol Hadan, Din Emet La'amito. Every judge whose ultimate goal is to come to the absolute truth, Ma'alev Katuv, you know what comes to him? Metaphysically, when we use these terms, the verse itself comes upon him. Metaphysically, the blessing, the concept of the verse, it's Kilu Nasa Shutaf L'Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Maaseh Breshit. That person becomes a full-fledged partner with Hashem in the creation of the world. Not just the creation of the world that happened, how many years ago? 5,781 years ago. But it happens every moment. God is recreating the world. If God doesn't want the world to exist, it would cease to exist. The very fact the world exists because he wants it to exist, and he's willing it into existence every nanosecond. And the judge whose whole being is geared towards trying to get to the ultimate truth can you imagine being a partner with God? Being a partner with Hashem in creation. As it says, what does it say in creation? It actually says, right, after every single day, V'hi erev, v'hi boker, and there was evening and there was morning. Okay, we're not going to get into this right now. It happens to be that you, the human being who's the judge, is the partner during the day, keeping the world going. and Hashem is the partner at night keeping the world going. We're not going to get into that right now. De'im lo kain, if that's not the case, it obviously has to be, meaning everything we just said about this being Yom Kippur. Because Ein Masai Hodia Masai Mishkan. When else would Moses have been able to tell them about the Mishkan? He wasn't around. Of course it was the day after Yom Kippur. Where was he? They were traveling for 50 days. Then Nasa V'Nishma, Shavuos. And he went up to the mountain for 40 days. He was busy. And then, of course, he came down and broke the tablets. He was busy begging, praying for our forgiveness for the next 40 days. And then we were forgiven, so God says, come back up. Moses was busy. He didn't have time to sit around and make any judgments. He didn't have any time to ask people to make any donations to the Mishkan either. The very first free moment he ever had was this day. I hope this now, it resolves a lot of issues in terms of the history, the choreography of what's happening in the desert. By the way, even if he says bring, now you have to bring, right, the half shekels, 2 half shekels, and then there's the 13 or 15 ingredients or materials. They didn't all come in one day. Okay, maybe the half shekels did, that was easy enough. But to figure out what, in other words, the half shekels is easy enough. It's a half a shekel. But if you want to donate a ton of gold, or some kind of colored thread, or wool, right? Or leather, or any of the other materials, the incense, it could take time. Perhaps this is why he informed them, that if anybody had a dispute, now's the time. This is the time to clarify before you give. Do not give anything until it's been clarified first if it actually belongs to you or to someone else. The next paragraph. Al-Tzad HaRemez Nomar. Now we're going to go deeper into the text from an aspect of an illusion. The purpose, right, of this gathering was to create. The word litavech means to mediate peace between them. Litavech, peace between them. Ki ein adam dar im nachash bekfifa achas. It's a little bit complicated. The Gemara Yavamos. I think it's important to know, in terms of marriage, right? 2 sane people, right? You're lucky if you find 2 sane people. They can live together. But if there's somebody who is not normal, whether they're evil or they're not normal, it's going to be very difficult to maintain peace in the home. But what if you have 2 people who are not normal? 2 people who are, the word here is shote, mamish crazy. It's impossible. And the rabbis would never allow a marriage like that to take place. It just doesn't happen. And if one of them goes crazy while they're married, God also will not allow them, or the rabbis wouldn't allow them to get divorced either. One sane person can take care of the other sane person. But anyway, the Gemara mentions that a person does not live with a nachash in the same closed area. In other words, under the same roof. So it's a little bit complicated, but the point here is that if you have a wicked Jew or somebody they're not getting along, they're really bogus, they're just angry, someone who's problematic, okay? Guess what? It's really difficult to live with someone else. Now the secret here is that it's not just God's house. We, the Jewish people, are partners. It's as if we're living under the same roof because it's our money, we donated it. Okay, it's our house too. And we're all living under one roof. There has to be peace. There has to be a way to forge peace. Do you understand how important this is? So after Moses informs them that they're to build this tabernacle, that they're all actually shutafim bo, they're all partners in this building. I know it sounds very metaphysical, but think of it. It's similar as if we're all dwelling together. We're partners in this project. Do you understand? This project is probably the best project of the entire world. The building of the temple here at the Mishkan. And we're all dwelling. It's as if we're all dwelling together. Al kain hutzrak lahakilam techila. That's why it was necessary to gather them all together. Shiu ba'aguda achas. That we would be bound together like one union. Al kain Pirush Rashi. This is why Rashi explains that this was the day after Yom Kippur. Shehoye zelamacheret Yom Kippurim. Does anybody experience Yom Kippur? Yochanan, you experienced Yom Kippur. For 40 days leading up to Yom Kippur, you started to really make cheshbonot. Who did I hurt? What did I do? What do I need to do to improve my own character? Right? And then comes the 10 days of tshuva, where you actually start, hopefully you're before, right? But for sure, you're making appointments with people, you're sending emails to people, you're calling people, you're figuring out when you run into people. Listen, can I ask you mechila? Can I ask you to forgive me for something I might have done to you? And then come Erev Yom Kippur, wow, people are really going out of their way, traveling far and wide just to make sure, maybe even to tombs, to cemeteries, to even speak to the dead and ask their forgiveness. And then Yom Kippur itself, it's a day of forgiveness. You know that you're being forgiven from Hashem directly, and the atmosphere is just unbelievable. It's such peace within the soul. So it was that day. Now, by the way, during our travels in the desert, many times it says v'yachanu, 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 over and over and over again. It means they. At the time we rested at the base of Mount Sinai, it says in chapter 19, verse 2, it says, v'yichan sham Yisrael. Not they, but Yisrael encamped, singular, right? As opposed to v'chanu, they. Here we have one individual, as Rashi says over there. I just have to find it real quick because it's a famous Rashi, and we should never forget this idea because we should strive for it all the days of our life, right? I can't find it, but it says, ki ish echad v'lev echad, right? As one person with one heart. And that's like the most ideal state for the Jewish people to be in. If you find it, just tell me where it is, and I'll let people know where they can find those words. Oh, you know where? Probably on wherever I have chapter 19, verse 2. Here it is. Okay, I don't know why it's not there. I cut and pasted, but it never made it. Okay. Im kain, ech efshar lahakilam bizman shem muchlachim ve'datim Shabbat. How else, right? If during the times in the desert, we were at odds with each other, there was quarreling and there was complaints. That's what it means, v'yachanu. But at this place, at Sinai itself, which we were still there, we're still at Sinai. This is Yom Kippur, we're still there. How could we ever gather together at a time if we were in dispute and we weren't all on the same page? When it says ein datam shaveh, it means where their thoughts were not unified. Only where their thoughts are unified. Ve'ez azman muchan hazeh matzah Moshe b'ikam k'ratzonu. What time period would be most appropriate, most fit for Moshe to gather them together as he wished? Havi Omer, the best thing to say is Zel Macheret Yom Kippurim. This was the day following Yom Kippur. Ki b'Yom Kippurim Hashalom mitavek beineim. Because the very day of Yom Kippur causes this peace to be mediated between them. Ube'etzam hayom hu kulam ba'aguda achas. That the essence of the day, and that's the truth of the day, the essence of the day, that all of them become bound together. That's why it would be so easy. It would be the most easiest day to gather them all together. The whole time that the peace of the previous day still existed. as he's going to say, but in Yom or Yomayim Ya'amod, but if 1 or 2 days passes or even more, as lo yukam shalom, that peace will not just stick around. It's in the atmosphere. You can smell it, you can feel it, you can consume it on Yom Kippur. Right? You don't need food and drink on Yom Kippur. You're like living off the fumes of mechila, of forgiveness. Kikavar nitpardu chavila. So if you waited 1 or 2 days, or even more, the peace would not last, and the package would already unravel. That's just it's a very poetic way of explaining the peace that had been created, unfortunately dissipates. Ki ish ledarko pone, that each person would end up going his own separate way, meaning turning away from the other person. Kadesh lo yitnaged el shalom divrei rivo shebeineihem be'esek memamon shebein ish lechavero. In order that they would not be, arguing, or let's say opposed to the peace, which obviously brings all kinds of words of quarrelsome amongst them and involvement in money between a person and his friend. Ki ein l'shalom shel Yom Kippurim osek b'zeh. When Yom Kippur, we're not doing any business, right? There's no business, no quarreling. So that would have still existed. Al kain yashav Moshe gam lishpot be'etzem hayom hahu. That's why Moses sat on that day, the day following Yom Kippur. Kedei shemikol tzad yesh shalom beineihem. In order that every side, every aspect, every relationship, to create peace between them, or not create, that there already will be, that there will be peace between them. Az yiruyim l'dur b'medur echad. And that would be, remember, this Mishkan they're about to build, the foundations, all beginnings, are just tough. They create reality, right? The seeds. I want to mention also, when I make, it's just me, I happen to do it, but when I make Havdalah, I learned this from the Sfaradim, right? To laugh at the very first bracha, not at the bracha, but when you make the bracha, the first bracha, Brei Pi Gafen, laugh, because you need to bring, I'm not telling you when you need it, I need it, to bring joy into the week, right? Shabbos is leaving. Again, it's going to be a high level of joy and oneg and all kinds of delicious atmosphere going on Shabbos, and it's leaving. And we're about to start 6 days of work, and therefore it's important to bring in laughter. Laughter is a great healer for many things, not just for the body, but also, and maybe especially, for the soul as well. Okay, here we are. So basically, this would be the best time as a foundation, a foundational structure, the day after Yom Kippur, because we're now bringing the idea of the Mishkan into the world, that we would all be willing to live with each other. There has to be shalom amongst us. Meaning, Dahainu, HaMishkan HaMeshutach L'Kulam. We're all partners. We're all partners in this. And then what happens, we're bringing us into a state of unity because we're all partners. Now we do find that Moses gathers the people several other times throughout the Tanakh and throughout the Chumash. Even though those other days were not the day after Yom Kippur, but what this also did was created the foundation of unity, so the other kihilot, the other times they were ma'akihil, was also for the sake of complete unity. Now this is going to get a little bit chasidut, a little bit of, flavor here. Ready for this? It says like this. Kol shekain lakatuv akeda. There's a sefer called the Educator, and Derek Melitza al Pasuk, he brings a presentation regarding one of the following verses. As we see, right, in our parsha, it says in verse 3, you shall not kindle fire in any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day. So lo ta'avuru eish. What does it mean? Do not kindle a fire on the Sabbath day. The Kli Yakar brings down, in the name of the Educator, Shelo yatzitu eish maklokes biyom. Do not cause arguments. Do not bring anger. Do not, Aish is fire. We'll call that anger, hamaklokas. Don't bring disputes into your home. It's a day for, why do we light Shabbos candles? To bring shalom into the home. Not just because, and it does add to the festive atmosphere. That is one of the main reasons. But one of the real top reasons is to bring shalom. You know, your wife cooked hard. She worked hard. You can see the house is clean. If you don't have a light on, you won't see how hard she worked. The food, it says that a person who cannot see will never be satisfied. Your wife cooked, you'll be able to tell her how good the food is because you're looking at it, right? Also, it's brought down that, God forbid, there would be a broomstick, right? She worked so hard, she fell asleep. She forgot to put the broomstick away. And guess what? It's dark and you trip over it. Who are you going to blame? We all know you're going to blame your wife, right? Or the wife will blame you. Or then you all blame the kids. And then the kids suffer. None of that should happen, right? The broomstick should be picked up. Nobody should trip anyway. And but the worst thing to do on Shabbos is to bring anger or fire of maklokis. Okay? Shenir pa'im heimim malacha. You know what happens, especially on Shabbos? People aren't using their phones. They're not going out to work. Right? So what happens? They're bored. And what happens when people are bored? They start fights. I mean, I'm not telling you it doesn't have to happen this way. But unfortunately, a lot of times it does. People are bored. People are nirpa hema memalacha. They're weak. Their hands are weak from doing work. V'yesh lechush biyoter az leish maklokas mitlakachat betoch devar betelim. So it's likely that fights will erupt when you're doing nothing. Im came yafa hamar. Now we understand it works out great. VaYakeil. They gathered them all together. Shakilim liyot baguda achas. The actual command in verse 3, do not ignite a fire. It flows. That we should all become aguda achas. We should have such brotherly love that there is no room to fight or to bring any kind of, animosity or words. That we don't, oh my God, I can't believe I said that, but I just insulted somebody. Now they're all upset, back and forth. You don't have that. And that's what it means. Sha'api diburo. Remember we said that Moses brought them together with words. He didn't force anybody. He spoke to them with kindness and he brought them together. That was how we saw that Rashi on that verse. Let's continue. Oh, we didn't get to the Kli Yakar or the Ollos Ephraim yet. He didn't mention it yet. Okay, good. So that's going to be like a big prize. I mentioned earlier on, we're going to get to the Ollos Ephraim, who is the very same as the Kli Yakar, and it's absolutely fascinating what he has to say. So, Bezrat Hashem, we have time. We're now continuing. It says, these are the things which Hashem commanded, la'asototam, to do them. Now this is talking about what? This is way before Shabbos. In other words, this is the end of verse 1. Then you have the words of Shabbos, the next two verses, and then you have the verses from verse 4 onward dealing with the Mishkan. So what is the word devarim? Devarim is plural. Now you might think it's talking about what? It's talking about Shabbos and the Mishkan. No, because the Mishkan, when it comes to the Mishkan, it says Zed davar asher tziva Hashem. This is the thing that God commanded. So you couldn't use, remember, forget the English, right? When we got to verse 3, right? These are the things, okay? Devarim, plural. And then later on, look at verse 4. It says, this is the word. The word, this is the thing. The word devar and devarim, word and thing, same word in Hebrew, right? So I don't care how they translate it. We're talking about the Hebrew, right? Ela devarim, and over there in verse 4 it says, zehadavar, singular. So if it's two things, you're not going to point out the second thing as a thing. That two things would have included two things. So what? So it's not the Mishkan. What are the two things that the verse 1 is talking about? That's what he's going to ask. Okay? Shnayim b'mashma. The very fact it says devarim in verse 1, two things, it implies two. It can only be talking about Shabbos. Two important things about Shabbos. And it cannot be talking about the Mishkan, which is said later. We said in verse 4, which says, Zeh hadavar shetiva Hashem. Clear as mud? Im kain zeh hadavar Mishkan amar. That's why in verse 4 it's for sure talking about the Mishkan, but in our verse talking about Shabbos, talking about two things. So umani mekayim, how do I explain it? How do I understand? How is it fulfilled with these words? Eila hadavarim. That's the first question. Another question is, right, as it says, Sheishes Yamim Te'aseh. The word is Te'aseh, right, with the vowels. You know what that's called? The two vowels, like the two dots like that? Teirei. You have the. So what does it mean? Te'aseh means automatically. It's passive. Passive. 6 days shall work be done. You're not doing it. We're going to see what it means. It's passive. Ta'aseh, okay, and it's talking about malacha. In other words, also in our verse, it doesn't say avodah. Avodah means labor. Malacha means we don't know. Okay, from those who come to my classes, they know, not just me, everyone teaches. Malacha is strictly 39 specific creative acts of work, not to be done on Shabbos, but that's how the Mishkan was built, with 39 specific constructive acts. So let's just translate it as work, okay? So labor and work, ta'avod and malacha. So, but our verse does not use the word avodah. It only uses the words malacha. Other places it uses both. Okay, it's fascinating. But he points this out, that it says te'aseh. It could have said, hoyelolomar ta'aseh. It could have said it's a command form. You shall work 6 days. It doesn't say, you shall work 6 days. 6 days work will be done passively. Ki te'aseh is me'atzma mashma. It's automatic. It's happening by itself. That's the second thing he points out. And another thing he points out, v'od kasha shapasuk ze kula mutar. It's actually redundant. You don't even need it because it already says about the 7th day, don't do malacha. So what do you need to tell me? 6 days, yes, malacha. I just need to know 7th day, no malacha. Now, back in chapter 20, where it does tell you in the 4th commandment, Sheishes Yamim Ta'avod. I know I mentioned this at the beginning, I just want to make it clear. Right? About the 3rd commandment is don't be a false witness, right? Don't take God's name in vain and lie, right, in court. So don't be a false witness. Then Shabbos, right? You're not observe Shabbos properly, and you won't be a false witness. What about the next mitzvah, right? The mitzvah of kibbut av v'eim comes after. So we learn that Shabbos is more important than honoring your parents, meaning that if your parents say to you, violate the Shabbos, mechalel at the Shabbos, you don't listen to your parents. You might think, oh, my dad says turn on the TV. My dad says drive me to the ball game. I have to honor my father. No, whatever comes first pushes off the second. Okay, we're not getting into that now, but here we have in that mitzvah, the 4th mitzvah, it says Sheishes Yamim Ta'avod. It uses the word labor. 6 days you shall labor. Rabbi Yisrael explains it over there. He's not going to discuss what he discussed over there. He's going to give us a whole new explanation. Ready for this? Al Kain Omer Ani. That's why I, the Kli Yakar, am going to explain it the following way. And you know why it says Devar in plural? Because the main mitzvah here, even though he's talking about Shabbos, but Shabbos is in order to teach you something. The whole thing is really about the Mishkan. That you should be involved in the act of building the Mishkan 6 days of the week. Do not be involved in the building of the Mishkan on Shabbos. Ki ein Mishkan doicha Shabbos, because Shabbos is more important and pushes off the Mishkan. The Mishkan does not push off Shabbos. You can't shnei devarim. So bottom line, we said, why does it say devarim 2 things? So he's going to tell us those two things. Remember this clearly. Echad, litzavos al maseh Mishkan. Yes, VaYakeil is not really about Shabbos. It's about building the Mishkan. Number two, shlo yasku bo b'Shabbos. Do not be involved in the Mishkan on Shabbos. Two things. The building of the Mishkan, and don't build it on Shabbos. Okay, now we're going to get into that te'aseh. As I mentioned, the tzeirei, the very fact that it says, it shall work be done. Work shall be done. It's not a command, don't work. I mentioned to my students this week, we have two ideas brought down. You have 39 malachot. None of them seem to be mentioned in the Torah. But guess what? The Torah says if you violate Shabbos, it's death penalty. How can it be that all 39 are not mentioned specifically? We have one, don't ignite a fire. We discussed. Where's the other one? There's another one, believe it or not. Hotza'ah. Carrying within the right? The guy collecting sticks on Shabbos is an example. Okay, it could be other things, harvesting or whatnot, but carrying within a public domain. Okay? That's forbidden. Now, listen to this. When it says, te'aseh melacha, work shall be done, it's saying like this, that the main point, the main command here is regarding the bringing of those materials for the Mishkan. When you bring a material for the Mishkan, it means you carry it from your home into the public thoroughfare. And what did we see? We'll see it shortly in chapter 36, verse 6. We'll get there in a second. Kigam ze nikra malacha, carrying from a private domain into a public domain, or even within a public domain, arba amos, a certain amount, 6 to 8 feet. Right? It's complicated, picking up, putting it down, whatever. But basically that's called one of the 39 milachot. Like Chazal teach us in the Gemara Shabbos, 96 side 2. But anyway, the verse says, Ish, and this is in chapter 36, verse 6. Let me just open it up real quick. Number 17. Moses commanded, and they announced in the camp, saying, let no man or woman do any more work. In Hebrew, malacha. Ish v'isha lo yasu od malacha. Read on for the offering for the holy, so the people stop bringing. V'yachalei ha'am mehavi. If he says stop doing malacha, and they were not allowed to bring, you're not allowed to carry. No more bringing, no more carrying from a private domain to a public domain. Unbelievable. Look at just Rashi on that verse. So the people stop bringing, the VaYakeil, expression of denoting, holding back. So you're not, it's passive. It's passive. You're not doing something, right? Imkein, Hava'at hanadava me reshus l'reshus nikre malacha. What do we see? That bringing from one domain to another domain is called malacha. Remember, we don't like to translate malacha, right? Because it's very specific. 39. I taught my students this week that if you carry a table, you have it in your apartment building or in your house, you need a table on the roof, and you carry this table with a few people, very heavy, up to the roof. Shabbos, no problem. That's not called milacha. But to carry a feather from your home into the street, death penalty. Malacha. Okay. Vod oto malacha mar te'aseh. And it's that malacha that you should do or not do. Te'aseh. Te'aseh. Lo yochol lomar. Now why? Because remember the nedavot, the gifts that you're bringing to build the Mishkan. I'm not talking about the 2.5 shekels. That's obligatory. But the other materials, that's a free will offering. You can bring as much or as little as you want. And you cannot make a command, lo ta'aseh, don't do something that wasn't even commanded to begin with. Ta'aseh malacha. You're not able to say, do it, do malacha, or don't do malacha. Derech tzivah is a command. Sherei hadavar hanita mitzad nadav eino tzivah v'choyve. Because something that is a free will offering, there's no aspect of it being command or an obligation. Why? Elakol ish v'ish nidbo libo. Because each person is giving from his own heart. Yitem miatzim, he's giving on his own. It's mamish, like giving on his own. That's why it says, te'aseh malacha. Those 6 days, te'aseh malacha. You shall do it. It'll happen automatically. Me'atzmo mashma. On its own. Ubiyom shvi'i, Shabbos l'Hashem. But the 7th day, Shabbos to God. V'asur bo gam hava'as nadavim reshus reshus. And it will be forbidden to bring these free will offerings from one domain to another. We just have 3 more lines, and then we're going to go into the Ollos Ephraim. Okay? So these 3 lines say, according to the Midrash, Chazal say, Ha'omer sha'mishkan nase ketzato me'alav. Now, I don't know exactly how that worked, but there are huge planks. Now, Moses was big and he was strong. But we know that Moses put together and disassembled the Mishkan for 7 straight days, and then he put it together on the 8th day. By the way, that 8th day is the 1st of Nisan, which is next week. Right? Parshas HaChodesh. It's 1 year from the time we left Egypt. The Mishkan is completed, and Moses leaves it up. But we have the Chazal that tells us the actual construction, even though Moses was involved and nobody else was, a lot of it was miraculous. It put itself together. One person could not have done it. And the verse actually says so, which we're going to see right now in chapter 40, verse 17. Let's see, it's the last source on that sheet. Where am I?
19.
No, before that, I'm looking, okay, one second. It said, the last thing we said was the Medrash says that the Mishkan made itself partially, like the menorah. The menorah also. Moses, Aaron, threw the gold into the fire, and it came out similar. I don't want to say like the golden calf, but the menorah was also too hard to construct from one block of gold, and Hashem participated. This is also whatever. Okay, we'll talk about it another time about the golden calf. The menorah, the candelabra came out and was also made by itself. So too, Akamat Mishkan, so too, the construction of the tabernacle was also made by itself, as it says in chapter 40, verse 17. It came to pass in the 1st month, in the 2nd year, on the 1st day of the month, like I said, that's in a few days from now, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that the Mishkan was set up. Now, forget the English. What does it say in Hebrew? Hukam HaMishkan. The Mishkan was set up by itself. Literally what it means. That's why it says, Te'aseh malacha, to do or not to do malacha, me'aleh mashma. Again, referring to part of the Mishkan itself that happened on its own. Okay, now we're going to go to some fascinating piece in the Ollos Ephraim. And I'm going to start off with a statement from the Medrash. You can find this, guys, on your phone, because I sent it to you. I didn't make copies. You go by the Hebrew, it looks like this. Okay? So this is not the full statement. Basically, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, Shabbos came before the master of the world and complained. I have nobody. Every single day of the week has a partner, right? Sunday has Monday, Sunday and Monday are together. Tuesday and Wednesday, they have partners. Thursday and Friday, every single day has a partner. Who's my partner? So out of the 7 days, 1 and 2 has a partner, 3 and 4 has a partner, 5 and 6 has a partner. What about number 7? There's no partner. God says the Jewish nation will be your partner. Okay? Now, what does it mean? Let's go into I keep saying the Kli Yakar, but for those who have a copy of the Ollos Ephraim or want a copy, it's in the Ollos Ephraim, Maimar Reish Samichet. I'm sorry, it's Reish Samich Tet. It's 269. Okay, meaning to say, Should I just read it in English as I read the Hebrew? Okay, let's try. Mediation, because Yisrael, the Knofeha ve'aguda achas, when the Jewish people were gathered together as one, and there was shalom beinehem, they were not involved. Shalo ya'asku b'yom kodesh zeh b'divrei rivois umachlokas. That holy day, whether it's Yom Kippur, the following day, they were not involved in any quarrels. V'az bli safek, there's no doubt. Hayu ponim lasok b'Torah. They would be involved in Torah. And now we're talking about Shabbos. We're talking about holy day called Shabbos. Not Yom Kippur, we're talking about Shabbos. As yizdavgu l'Shabbos, they would be joined up, partnership with Shabbos, al yidei Torah. It's the Torah itself is the glue the Jewish people have with Shabbos. The tzur tu'udat belimudam, which means that through the Torah, that creates or fortifies and certifies their studies. In other words, the combination of Torah and Shabbos for the Jewish people altogether. Remember, you're not doing any work. Then it will be the act of Shabbos, the day of Shabbos, will be in actuality, right, not just not doing anything. It's not just a cessation of something alone. Like it says in Exodus chapter 31, verse 16, it says, La'asos as a Shabbos. Right? We say in Kiddush, to make the Shabbos. To make the Shabbos. Kilo yiskor toivo the yoifoi ki'im bekun ba'aseh. This idea, kilo yiskor tova, it's a double negative here, right? There's only a mentioning of good and beauty through the positive aspects of Shabbos, and it's not just a cessation alone. Don't think as Shabbos as doing nothing. It's not at all about doing nothing. Wait, it says lasos, to do Shabbos. How does one do Shabbos? We should have a what do you call it? Like a t-shirt with the Nike thing, right? Just do it. Do Shabbos. Make Shabbos. We're going to learn how to make Shabbos. It's about learning Torah, believe it or not. This I couldn't really translate, I think, properly. I have here a missing reality that has no reality in it. Okay, so let's try to pull that statement a little bit apart. It's nikra, it's called a metzias, a reality. Chaser she'ein bo shum metzias. It really means there's nothing lacking. I think that's really the best way there's absolutely nothing lacking in Shabbos. Don't think, oh my God, I can't do anything. You're making Shabbos, and it's a reality that has absolutely nothing missing from it. However, the real Metzias, the prime existence of Shabbos, is something that is acted upon, and that is, ready? La'asok b'meleches hanefesh b'talmud Torah. The prime action or malacha, poel, action that one does on Shabbos is involving with the work of the soul. Meleches hanefesh. You understand? The real work is on Shabbos through Talmud Torah, through learning Torah. Then Yizkel lenachlas Yaakov nachla bli mitzarim. Now, just to get an idea of what these words mean, I would suggest there is a verse. You can go to Isaiah chapter 58, verse 14. You'll see it on the second page over there, where God tells Isaiah to tell us, then you shall delight with the Lord. Az tit aneg. There will be delight al Hashem. And I will cause you to ride on the high places of the land, and I will give you to eat the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord had spoken. V'yachaticha nachlas Yaakov, You will consume, you will infiltrate into your being the inheritance of Yaakov. Now this inheritance of Yaakov is bli mitzarim, without any pain, without any borders, without any constriction. It's unbelievable. This is the promise. So make Shabbos, make it. It's not a chaser, it's not lacking anything. But it's for you to be involved in the soul work through the Torah, and then you will merit, you will truly merit the inheritance of Yaakov without any mitzarim, without any boundary. Ki kavar zchanu b'mar lail, he already discussed this idea, nachlas chachmas Torah, that the inheritance of the wisdom of Torah is called nachlas bli mitzarim. The Torah itself, if you acquire the Torah, you can keep that, by the way. If you acquire the Torah, you're acquiring wisdom without any boundary, without any limit. There is no fence or boundary. Like it says, look in Psalms 119. Let's see where that is. And here it is. Verse 96. It says, of every infinite thing I have seen the end. Your commandments are very broad. That's very nice English. But the Hebrew is, Rachava mitzvotecha miod. So unbelievable. Look at Rashi on that verse. To every conclusion of a thing, there's always an end and a boundary. But when it comes to your commandments, there is no bound, there is no end or boundary to their conclusion. Keep in mind, the word mitzvah itself is vav he at the end. God's name, right? Yud Kei Vav Kei, Vav He at the end. What about the Mem Tzadik? The Atbash is a way of doing Gematria. It's Aleph Taf, right? And Bet Shin. Mem Tzadik is Yud He. Of course Hashem Hashem himself is wrapped up bound in the mitzvah. There is no limit to Hashem. Right? Unbelievable. Okay. So, Vihi Nachlas Yaakov. This is the inheritance of Yaakov. Ki olav nigalu seder madrigot hasagat hachachamos milamata lamala. This inheritance of Yaakov, this is the revelation of the organization, the order of steps in order to reach the wisdom from below to above. That's what steps are about, ascending, right? Kenoda miseder hamadriga matchila tzarich lahashim siklo b'chachma hateva. So in order, it's well known that when one wants to go from one step to another in terms of wisdom, he first has to begin by completing or perfecting his own soul. Now I want to say the word seichel could mean spirituality, soul, or it could mean intellect. So I will combine the two combinations, translations, together. So you have the Kli Yakar, is a Talmud of the Maharal, and he holds Seichel is spirit, soul. The Rambam understands Seichel is intellect. But why not translate it like this? From the very beginning, if you want to climb these steps, you must perfect, you need to perfect your intellectual spirit naturally, leda, to know, lahakir, and to recognize hadavar hativiim sheba'olam hatachton. You first begin. There's 4 levels of existence. There's the lowest level that of this world that is very we call it natural, nature, and afterwards, then you go up in levels. You go to the next level. Techuna here means the middle. It actually means higher, but it's the higher one. It's not the highest. It's higher than the lower one. Now, it's talking about the orbits. It's really talking about, on a certain level, the constellations. It's talking about, when you say Galgalim Sheba'olam, you're talking about whatever natural matrix, the way the gears flow, in this world. But we're already talking about the next level up. So we live in the Tachtonim. We're talking about the heavenly, but not the highest of heavens. And afterwards, B'chachnas Elokus Sheba'olam Elyon. And after that, the third level, which is a godly level on a more supernal level. And then after that, Achakach Yasig Mag Sheyochel Lahasig Metzius Hashem Yisbarach. Whoa! Can you believe this? Then you can reach a level where you truly understand the essence of Hashem, mitzad darcha pulotav, from his actions, his ways, and his actions. And this is what it's meant by, the sulam in Genesis chapter 28, verse 12, where Yaakov dreamed the dream with the ladder. It says over there, and he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set upon the ground, and its top reached to heaven. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending upon it. Hine sulam mutzav artzecha. So based on that idea, the secret of this ladder, on which upon it the hamaskilim, the enlightened ones. Who are the enlightened ones? Hopefully we are. Where we're going from one level to the next. These are the four worlds you just described. Kamor, hine sula mutzav arza. It began by saying that the ladder stood on the ground. That's talking about the lowest level. The Rosh Magia Shemaima, and its top reached the heavens. That's the next level. It's not the highest level. Not the highest level, but it's the next level above the bottom one. Hine malachei Elokim oilim yordim bo. So then the angels are going up and down on it. That is the gagalim, so to speak, the gears that are moving the world. And that's the supernal world, but it's not the highest level yet. It's not the fourth level, it's only the third. Hine Hashem notzav olav, but it says God stood upon it. Zen madriga revi'it, that's the fourth level. Lahasig metzius Hashem Yisbarach, in order to reach the full understanding of Hashem, as we said in this verse in Isaiah chapter 58, verse 14. Now we're going to start with Shabbos. Nimsa, as also in there comes out, you might say, Lahatzazu shiyom Shabbos hu yom nubal yotim yishar yomim lasot bo b'Torah. You know what people would say? Shabbos is very limited. What can you do? You're stuck. Chaval. I feel really bad for these people. Okay? That's not at all. Not at all. Rather, look at this. That this is what people would say. The Yom Shabbos is mugbal. Mugbal is more limited than any other days to what? No. You know what? This is the day to learn Torah. You're not at all limited. Listen to what it says in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 1. It says over there, wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. That's in Hebrew. Chachmos bonta besa, chotz ba'amudecha shiva. Okay. Lefi shesheva chachamos hein ba'olam. There are 7 pillars of wisdom in the world. The Torah is tachlu kulam, and Torah includes all of them. Meaning they're all included under the banner of Torah. Oh, Shiva Svarim. Did you know there are 7 books? We don't call them. We call it a Chumash. Chumash means 5 books of Moses. Everyone knows, right? Chumshei Torah. The 5 books of Moses. Hamisha Chumshei Torah. Guess what? There are really 7. 7 books. In Bamidbar, you have these 2 upside down inverted nuns. They have 85 letters. There's 2 verses. Those 2 verses are a book on its own. V'hibin Sa'aron. Now listen to this. He says, Shiva Svarim Shibet Torah, Haklulim Kol Chachmos. Those 7 books of the Torah include all wisdom. Al Kei Nivcharu L'Talmud Torah Bizmanim Ashvios. That's why the concept of Torah is given over to the number 7. Now, I just want to mention, I do have a lot of Bnei Noach, and those who are truly Ben Noach, they have adopted the 7. They will truly go to heaven because they understand that the Torah is from heaven. The Torah was given by God at Mount Sinai, and everything in it is true. And that is why, the main reason, besides the fact that they're holy people, that they're trying to be holy people, that they will go to heaven. They have a portion in the Torah, they have a portion in the world to come, they have a portion with the Jewish people. Whatever level that is, they have a portion in it. Okay, so listen to these words. Al kein nivchar l'talmid Torah bizmanim kol hashvios. The whole concept we're not going to talk about. The Torah was given in sevens. Hein b'yamim, we're going to talk about days. Hein b'shvuos, we're going to talk about weeks. Hein b'chadashim, we're going to talk about 7 months. We're going to talk about months. Gam shanim, in years, and also in we'll call the sabbaticals, and also in thousands. Now, ready? Put on your seatbelts. B'yamim ketzad, when we talk about the sevens of days, what are we talking about? Kavar b'yar Rosh Yom Hashvi, we already said that the 7th day, which is Shabbos, Yom Shabbos. Did you know that the original Shavuot was Shabbos? When the Torah was given to the Jewish people, we left on a Thursday, right? Yom Chamishi. The 50th day, when we received the Torah, was Shabbos. Okay, so the Torah itself was given on Shabbos. Let me just read the Hebrew. The Torah was given Muchan l'Talmud Torah. So the very fact that the Torah was given on Shabbos means that the Shabbos is fitting for Torah more than any other day. And this is what it means in Exodus chapter 20, verse 9, meaning that the 4th of the 10 commandments. 6 days tavod. 6 days tavod, labor. V'asita kol malatecha, and do all your work. See, in our parsha, VaYakeil only uses the word malacha. But back there, in chapter 20, it uses both phrases, tavod and milatecha. V'yom hashvi, and the 7th day, it's a Shabbos to Hashem. It's a rest day to God, to Hashem your God. What does it mean? Kol zayin yomim tavod es Hashem. All 7 days serve Hashem. The word tavod doesn't just mean labor. It's avoda. It's actually service to God. We serve God all the days of the week. Yom Shvi'i becomes the I skipped something. And also do the work with the malacha. But the 7th day, all of it's to Hashem. And that's also by Shemitah, by the sabbatical year. It says, V'shavta ha'aretz Shabbos l'Hashem. Cease working the land, it's a Shabbos to God. So this explained days. What about weeks? Very simply, Shavuos, right? The festival of weeks. How is that? Ki kavar yidat shetziva kadosh baruch hu lizkor 7 Shavuos. God commanded us to count 7 weeks, right? Each day, 7 weeks, ad yom matan Torah, until the giving of the Torah, which is at the end of 7 weeks. Well, what about months? How do we understand months? How is months counted till 7? Ki chodesh Tishrei, the month that Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot falls on, that's the 7th month. What happened in that 7th month? If you've been paying attention, you know that the Torah was given. What do you mean? Didn't you just say it was given in the 3rd month in Shavuos after 50 days? Yes, it was Matan Torah. But when did we actually receive the Torah? That was on Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur is in the 7th month. Not Na Torah al Machona. That was the most appropriate day and month to receive the Torah. And in Gemara Tainis, it actually tells us that the day that we receive the Torah is the Yom Chatanah. It's a wedding day. That was when, so we could say we were betrothed. We were actually betrothed to Hashem on Shavuos. But the actual wedding day with the chuppah, that was on Yom Kippur. Zeh Matan Torah, Yom Kippur. Rashi explains himself. Rashi tells us the day that we received the 2nd set of tablets was on Yom Kippur. And that is exactly why on Yom Kippur It's called Shabbat Shabbaton, and it's also the day full of forgiveness. What about the years? How is that counted in sevens? We all know Shemitah, which is a sabbatical year. That's Shana Shiva, it's the 7th year. Shenifchu l'menucha. Are you aware why did God want all the farmers to rest? Obviously, you're in high tech. Obviously, if you have a store, retail store, you're going to continue working. The farmers are all going to stop. The farmers are going to stop and do what? They're going to learn Torah. All this is about learning Torah. On the 7th year, called Shemitah, it was chosen for rest and not doing malacha, ceasing bitul malacha, kedeshu ponim la'asok b'Torah, in order that the whole year a farmer should sit and learn Torah. That is the sevens of years. What about Shmitot? 7 Shmitas. Jubilee, you heard of the word Jubilee? Shmitos, Dainu Bosot, 7 Shmitos. At the end of 7 Shemitah cycles, we call the Jubilee year, which is the 50th year. Yoshev kol ish chai rab polim el chazuto. Guess what happens? Each person returns back to his inheritance, right? If you sold your land, right, your farmland, you sold your land, you go back. It doesn't matter. There's no lease more than 50 years. It's going to always end on the Jubilee year no matter what. And you return to your Nachalah inheritance. And what is your inheritance? Your true inheritance. I'm talking to you. It's the Torah. That is your true inheritance. What about thousands of years? Wait till you hear this. For those that don't know, right, that I'm just going to read this in Gemara Avodah Zarah. It mentions that the world is destined to exist for only 6,000 years. 2,000, remember, each one has a partner. 2,000 years for one thing, 2,000 years for another, and the third 2,000 years for something else. I'll explain in a second. And the last 1,000 years, Shabbos. Again, the Jewish people are related, married, but let's just read what the Gemara has to say. The sages of the school of Eliyahu taught the world is destined to exist for 6,000 years. For 2,000 years, the world was a waste, tohu vavohu, the original chaos and void. The Torah had not yet been given. The next set of 2,000 years is the time of Torah, right from the time of Abraham onward, the following 2,000 years. And the last 2,000 years, we're really approaching the 6,000th year ourselves. The last 2,000 years is set up and designated for days of Mashiach. What about the last 1,000 years? That's called Shabbos. And I'll just explain, that means no physical work. That last 1,000 years, there will be no physical work, meaning that all business, the only business that one will be involved with is Torah and wisdom. There will not be any hunger or any famine, no poverty and no hunger. Only to the listening of the word of Hashem. And this is what it means, as we read originally in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 1. Wisdom has built her house, she has hewn her 7 pillars. Chachmos banta besa chatzla mideh shiva. And it's for this reason, on Shabbat, the 7th day, we call up for the public Torah reading. 7 men come up for aliyot. Why? In order to remember that all these 7s I have to go to the Hebrew because I'm not sure how I wrote the English, but he says like this. U'mizeh hatam, this is the reason, shenitztavinu likros b'Torah, that we are commanded to read from the Torah, b'kol Shabbos, every single Shabbos, 7 gavrei, 7 men. Liskor, in order to remember, kol hashriot, all of these 7s, ha'elu. Hanizkarim v'nasim lahagos b'hem, in order that we should meditate on them and learn in them the Torah and be full of Yiras Hashem all day and every single day. And with that, I wish everybody a blessed Shabbos, an unbelievable, hopefully a new insight that Shabbos is not a day of just not doing anything. It's a day to really get involved. Find a chabura, start one. Find a partner to learn with. Learn with your partner, learn with your wife, learn with your husband, learn with your kids, right? Find the chabura, do something meaningful, and don't just feel, God forbid, restricted, because it's a reminder, the truth is, of the whole purpose of the world, of the Tochnit. God looked into the Torah and created the world. What would we say? The first in thought is the last in deed. What was the first thing, right? God created 6 days, but what was he thinking? What he had in mind at the end, which is man and Shabbos. Those are the last things that we can basically say we created. So, B'ezrat Hashem, we can have a foot in the world to come by experiencing Shabbos correctly, properly, learn about it. You can use the internet. I think there's like Chabad, Eshet Torah, or Sameach. Actually, at the very bottom of these videos, there is a whole list of people you can learn with, different websites, find a partner. And with that, I will tell you, as I always sign off, have a great life and a great Shabbos, a Chodesh Tov, Hag Kosher, Pesach, and all the good things that come with life. Kol Tov.
It's